I don't forget about you. No.
Yeah.
It's just like, and sometimes when I'm listening, because I know when I'm writing, even I write 3 novels at one time. So y'all just know about secret romances. Y'all don't know about Dragonfly Principle yet. Y'all don't know about MK Ultra. That will be for you, Tim, probably. MK Ultra. Y'all don't know about these. So as I'm listening to voices, I'm going, ooh, you know what? That sounds like, ooh, wait a minute. So it's kind of cool that way.
What's the dragonfly? What it was?
Dragonfly Principle.
Principle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You'll have to wait on that one.
Right. My stepdad is a dragonfly. He passed away, and now dragonflies are always him. So,
well, my spirit animal, I'm part American Indian, is dragonflies.
Ah, nice.
And the Dragonfly Principle is actually based kind of off of my life with a twist. I call that faction.
I like it. Faction.
Take a little bit of my life, put it in there,
Right.
make it fiction, but I call it faction.
Perfect.
I write faction. So
Poor Tim.
yeah.
He's overwhelmed by all these women chit-chatting.
Hey, I'm in a room with 3 women. I know to keep my mouth shut.
Beautiful women. Brilliant women. And humble. That's what we are.
Yes.
Now, I want to go through one at a time. And one piece of advice, because I'm going to put all of y'all on Absolute Author Publishing House as certified Absolute Author narrators, number 1. And we're going to be very selective who goes there. Probably only be my narrators. No, I'm kidding. But when I say I take ownership of y'all. I love y'all so much. But what advice would y'all give? This is twofold, okay? To authors that are searching for narrators. And then the second one is someone that's wanting to become an audio narrator. So that's 2 points, 2 factors real quick. Tim, we'll let you go first.
All right. First off, don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone.
You're talking to narrators right now, right?
Right.
Okay.
Because not being an author yet, I'm
you're working on
address that. Being a narrator, not only do not be afraid to get out of your comfort zone, but and I could go on for hours about how you could do this with that kind of equipment and try to do this with a character, blah blah blah. But to keep it succinct and get down to it, is one of my favorite things is that, and I've got this on my wall. It's a quote from Calvin Coolidge, who was our 30th president. And he said, "Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent."
Amen.
Wow. All right. So that's now for authors seeking narrators. What's your best advice besides going to ACX?
Get an idea of what you want to do with the audiobook, because I tend to run across a phenomenon that, since the audiobook market is exploding right now, a lot of people are like, oh my God, I got to get this turned into an audiobook. Well, don't just pick the first narrator that comes along. Give it a chance, try several people. And take a look at, from an author's point of view, take a look at the book itself. There's been any number of books that I've done where I've had to go back and work with the author and do some copy editing, because it comes across well in print, but when you speak it out loud, it doesn't work real well. One of my favorite pet peeves is when I come across somewhere in the book and it says, refer to figure 1. They can't see figure 1.
Right. He had to, by the way, people, he had to do that with How to Launch and Market a Book with Me. I'm
And another
guilty.
one that drives me crazy too is, refer to refer to the list above. There's no above and below in an audiobook. So just little things like that.
So you actually, so that's a good tip. So if you have a nonfiction book that is a how-to in this, make sure you describe it and says, so refer to the list above. Here's a list of items you need to know. Dun, 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 dun. Then you say, refer. Now, the third item is, instead of, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and, going in.
You actually have to rewrite the script from the book for the audio book in that case.
Correct. And a lot of, since I do a fair amount of nonfiction, is, you'll have a list of things, and when a person can see it, that's fine. But if they're listening to it, I'm reading a list of 12 different items. By the time I get to the third one, the listener has forgotten the first one. So trying to condense that kind of information can be a challenge.
We're very good at it. I can speak firsthand on that. I've seen it. So that's advice for those two.
And just a real quickie too, we were talking about getting out of your comfort zone. And this was a while back. I ran across a book that I just loved the story. I love fantasy fiction stuff. So I auditioned for it. Did not expect to get it. And the author got back to me, a young lady out of San Francisco. And she said, I love what you did with your book. I ended up narrating the book. It is called The Light of Supramasia. The premise of the book is there is this 14-year-old girl who discovers she can see and talk to ghosts. She winds up in a special school called the Vita Postmortem Academy for people who have this ability, and it teaches them how to deal with this in life. Now, mind you, this was told first person from the point of view of a 14-year-old girl with my voice.
With your voice.
And she loved what I did with it. But what was so much fun about doing this book is that school I was telling you about, all the teachers in it were famous people from history who have died. They were all ghosts.
Oh, I love that.
So I did Albert Einstein, JFK, Sammy Davis Jr. I even did Marilyn Monroe.
Can I hear your Marilyn Monroe?
And it was an absolute ball to do. And I want to start getting into more of that kind of thing again. I want to do more fiction, and that was part of the reason. But here again, for on narrator sides, and Chris, you mentioned this, nonfiction is a lot easier to do than fiction. Fiction, you got to keep track of characters. You've got to keep track of emotion. In fact, that little short story that we're doing for your Campfire series book.
The Creek Dweller?
Yeah, The Creek Dweller. I read through this and, okay, a little short story. I can whip it off and we'll put it as, a stinger in this book. There's 7 different children, one of which is a girl, plus I got to do a swamp monster.
And they're all
Nice.
my children. That particular story, we go camping every year as a family. I go with each of my 3 kids and their kids. And that story, we were sitting around a campfire one night, and my grandkids say, Mama, will you tell us a story? So I have to make them up on the fly. And we had just been at the creek that day. So that's where that one, so that's all of them.
Cool.
That's all of my grandkids.
Yeah. Well, now I've been introduced to your grandchildren.
Oh, yes.
So, but my point is, I imagine, particularly from a narrator's point of view, but also from an author's point of view, which is what I'm going to be getting into here shortly. Be, not only the persistence thing, but don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone.
All right.
How many times have you heard it? You will not make progress as long as you remain comfortable. You've got to be willing to take a risk.
Perfect. So that's that. Who wants to go next, Rebecca or Chris?
I'll go.
You can go, Chris.
Sorry, jumped in.
That's the teacher in us. I'll go it.
I raised my hand, of course.
But wait, before you start, I just want to add one thing before you start.
Yeah.
When you were talking about reading to your class, I will never forget, and I must have been in the 2nd or 3rd grade. I'm not even sure which one it was, but every day for the last 20 minutes of my class, our teacher read, and I remember getting so enthralled in the stories. I hated it when the bell rang.
Yes. My kids are, every time I stop, they're like, no, don't stop.
Right. And so
yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, I love it.
So much. So carry on. I just wanted to say that. I'm so glad you're doing that.
Oh, yeah. Well, not anymore because I quit teaching. So, but advice for authors, I guess, a lot of what Tim had said, but have an idea in mind. Now you did this. You know what you want your characters to sound like, because there are thousands of people that you can listen to. So, definitely have an idea in mind of what you're looking for, if you're going to go in and find someone. The editing, I have run into some serious editing on many of the books that I did, where I am correcting so much of their editing, and I'm like, shouldn't I be getting paid for this? I don't even, so please edit your books well.
If you ever find any of mine, let me know. I'll change it.
Yeah.
I work hard.
And that's another thing that's kind of hard is, okay, they said this, but it sounds awkward when I read it. Do they mean this? And I want to try to throw that and get an idea. And so, yeah, I talk with my authors a lot when I'm in the middle of doing the books to make sure I get across what they, so be available. I guess that's another piece of advice, so that, you can go back and forth and get exactly what you're looking for. I always put out, if there's anything you want me to change. And I was surprised at, one of my authors is like, oh no, it's all perfect, just like it is. And I was kind of surprised, like, you sure? I could have like that, or I could, but anyway.
With Jessie, when she was doing part of Never Stop Running, and she gets to the roll call, and there's names like, Thibodeau and Eshesho. And she's like, she calls her, she says, how do you say this?
Right.
It's like, whoa. And
yeah. And then advice for narrators, definitely, I love that Rebecca just went on, found one and tried it. You got to do that. And that's how I started too. I was afraid, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to start auditioning and see what happens. And again, if you know what you're doing, if you're good at it, then they're going to take you because you're good at it. You just try it and try all different things. I have done so many different auditions, kids books to, a little,
Spice.
Getting a little spicy. Right. So yeah, it just put yourself out there and try things. Don't be afraid, because you can always fix it.
all right. Good advice. And Rebecca.
Advice for authors. Yes, there is something to be said for knowing the sound that's in your mind, obviously, but you could be surprised. For example, people who have a book that's written from a male perspective and they don't listen to female auditions, I think that's a mistake. In fact, I just did one it just came out, and the prologue scene was, I am a male serial killer. And I read the prologue as I'm killing the person as a man.
Okay.
So you just don't know. And I think that the male narrators, for whatever reason, do dominate a lot of the gritty, meaty work that's out there. And I think that authors should be a little bit more open to hearing female narrators. The second thing I would say is, when you're putting scripts up for audition, a lot of authors, for whatever reason, just throw up chapter 1. And they're doing themselves a huge disservice, because some of the critical parts to defining a character are not in chapter 1. So it only makes sense.
That's why mine are so long. It's from the beginning, middle, and the ends. Take
a minute to give some, you don't have to do the whole rubric, if you don't want to, but make sure that the critical variables are there. And then lastly, as far as the auditions, once you get someone who you have hired, ask them if they pre-read the book. If they pre-read, this is a moot point, but if you kind of get that they don't, I always ask, like 3 key questions. Which character is going to surprise the reader?
Okay.
Who actually has an ulterior motive throughout, so that I can understand if there's foreshadowing or some sort of tongue-in-cheek. I ask, who as the listener am I supposed to like, and who am I supposed to dislike? And who am I supposed to feel sorry for, and who am I supposed to root for?
There you go.
Those are some very broad sketches that really help if you're not a pre-reader. As far
That's
as
good advice, actually.
thank you.
That's real good advice.
As far as narrators go, yeah, all of the thoughts about, not being afraid and going for it. Yes, that's absolutely 100%. A lot of people that I've worked with trying to coach and get going spend all their time getting ready to get ready, and it's this cycle of getting ready. So if you can just throw your hat in, just like Chris did, you never know. But you also have to be aware that there may actually be an innate talent that you do or don't have. And so it's important to get in Facebook groups with other narrators, make friends, share your work back and forth. And I would think within a year, no one wants to swim upstream. And I have several students that I've worked with for several years who there's an unspoken fact that it's just not for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really important to just own the fact that we're all here for different reasons. And as much as this sounds like the dream job, it's very difficult.
Oh, it is.
And it may not be a fit.
I used to I probably have voiced over 300 commercials.
Yeah.
Some commercials. So that's when I decided I didn't want to be an audio narrator.
It's different.
Because those commercials, I had to do one. Welcome to hi, the Cookie Factory. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. And they were only a minute scripts.
Yeah.
And I'd take 500 takes. It's like, oh my God, no.
I
Live
would say,
do.
if you are not in your studio having 3 hours pass without you being aware how long you've been there, then it's probably not a perfect fit. It needs to be something that you're doing with your fiber. Otherwise, it's a chore.
What happens if this goes to any of you? What do you do if you actually accepted a book? Okay, like God forbid one of mine, but I'll just make up one. We're going to call it's free. This book, you accepted this book. It's free, and it's about a whatever.
Yeah.
And you get into it, and you go, I can't take this book. What do you do?
I personally, just because I just had that happen about 6 months ago, I will decide that I hate the book so badly, but the only thing that I can give it is personality and me. So I almost turn it into a caricature of it, where if it's like some steamy scene that's just written over the top body, I'll get in there and make it fun, like it's almost a tongue-in-cheek. Because in order for me to stir up any emotion to buy what I'm reading, I have to overdo it. Mm. And it comes across to the listener, though, as pretty normal.
It's normal.
But to me, because I was so not feeling it, I had to almost clown it up a little.
Do you ever just say no and say, I'm over this contract? It's no.
I've never done that because you don't know who they know.
That's true.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, I've never done that.
That's a good point. What do you do, Chris?
Yeah, I wouldn't give it up. I would continue going with it. I probably would just have to take more breaks, and there has been books. I was doing one that was like 8 hours. By the end, I was kind of like, okay, I kind of had it with this, but that's only because I was doing it for like 8 hours a day, and then I'm like, I'm losing my mind. But generally, I can get through anything. Heck, I'm a teacher.
You're a professional. You're a professional.
It's good to have multiple books going too, so that you can.
That's why I write multiple books.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, when I get tired of killing somebody, I'm writing, I go to my romance. Oh, I need some love.
Right.